listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Laura Greco, your SuperPower Mommas host, and I am so excited to be with you once again today. I am speaking with Payal Arora on the topic of embracing the power of self in small, confident steps. And just a little bit about Payal. She is a certified health coach who focuses on helping busy moms integrate healthier habits into their routines. She looks at health from a holistic point of view, encompassing food, exercise, stress management, relationships, spirituality, career, and creativity. As a business owner and a mom of 2 children of her own, she knows how tough it can be to get to prioritize herself, and that's why she focuses on helping moms make small, sustainable changes that have the greatest impact and can last over time. And does that not speak to all of us as mamas when we're busy raising children and for some of us working or growing a business? So welcome, Payal. I am so excited to have you here.
Laura, hi. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and so grateful to be with you today and have this opportunity to talk. So thank you.
Yeah. So tell me, as you know, on our show, we always focus, first of all, on superpowers. And I believe that all mamas have superpowers. In fact, everyone does in general anyway, but for moms, it's a little unique. And so as a mom and also a business owner, what would you say that your superpower is?
Sure. Yeah. So I thought about this for a while, and I think what I would say is my superpower is my willingness to allow for a certain sense of vulnerability when I'm connecting with others, with other mamas, and forming relationships. And so I think what I mean by this is when I say vulnerability, I mean it in the form of a sense of openness to people, to experiences, to being okay with uncertainty, but also in terms of embracing, who I am and who the person in front of me is. And I think it's kind of important in terms of forming relationships and in the work that I do, because it allows for a conversation with that mama that says, I see you there, you're okay, you're safe, and here I am as I am with all my rough edges. And I feel like this type of conversation allows for a bit of trust to start being built.
Yes. And I know that in general, the world or the younger generation, I'm a mom of adult children, so I have my own children that are probably similar to your age at this point. But there is a sense of wanting more realness in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, for me, I was lucky in that I think I was able to develop this sort of sense of realness and openness due to the way that I was brought up and the experiences I had as a child, because, as a family, we moved around literally almost every 4 years around the world. And I had lived on 4 different continents by the age of 12.
Oh my.
And so I feel like I'd been in many situations as a child, as a new kid, and you're often vulnerable in that new kid position, but you also learn to be open to new ideas and new situations and new people. And in fact, now I love it. I love meeting new people. I love forming those relationships. I love constantly learning new things from them. So I think it's like I'll forever be a student, and in that way, craving that realness.
Yeah. And to your credit, I just mentioned to the listeners the way we met. Yeah, it was through Instagram, actually, because I do posts there. And to send messages for mamas, and maybe you want to expand on that, but your enthusiasm was amazing and so delightful to experience. So would you like to say a little more on that?
Thank you. About the way we met, or about
yes.
just...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw a post that you had put up, and it was about just, I think it was about your kids don't want you to be perfect. They just want you to be happy and sort of real and there.
Yeah.
It was along those lines, and I loved it so much, and it spoke so much to this topic, and also just to what I feel I try to help mamas with in general. And so I reposted it, and then that's how we connected, just through Instagram, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And I remember after you did that, I was impressed with your openness, to explore and to see. And I had to know who you were. And that's, of course, how we began this journey together. So really, really exciting stuff. And it's one way for us to see, too, that how connected we really are as human beings.
Yes.
And it's the hearts that draw us, isn't it?
Yes, totally. And I think we'll talk about this more in a bit, but like the connectedness is something that I struggled with as a new mother, because I felt very alone. I think when I first had my child and then my second child, and it was this feeling in aloneness and failure almost, because I found it really difficult, the changes and being a parent and being responsible for another living being and all of it. And I found it so hard, and I didn't understand, because I had been successful up to this point in my life. I had done well in school. I had a career, and I thought I was doing great. But then when it came to parenting, it felt so hard. And then I felt alone because I felt like I was failing. And then it wasn't until I started really connecting with other mothers in the same boat that I realized I was not failing. I realized it is hard, and everyone struggles to some extent. And it was that connectedness that really kind of brought me to a point where I realized, wow, there are so many other mothers out there that feel this loneliness and feel this struggle and don't realize that others do too. And that's kind of what brought me to the work that I do now, to be very, very apparent. Like, that's what I wanted to do, was try to help build that connectedness.
Yes. And I can see how your superpower, how your life experience has led you to this place. And so often, isn't it true, Payal, that new experiences feel so overwhelming at times, and yet when we get better at it, then it's like, oh, what was I even thinking?
Yeah. And I don't even know that. I mean, I think, yes, you get better at it as a mother as you gain experience at it. But every day it changes too. I mean, and as your children grow, everything changes. And so then again, you have to just be okay with that change, you know, and go with that flow, and then and understand that that's temporary. Things will change again. And so I think there's always a steep learning curve, and it continues that way. I don't know until when it stops. I guess like once your children maybe leave the home.
Never.
I don't know.
Never. I can tell you that from experience. And and you have 2 children, and I had 4, and I'm sure that you have experienced the exact same thing. And that every mom I talk to, right, there are no 2 children alike. I never thought that I had 2 most opposite first 2 children, only to discover that there was still more for the 3rd and the 4th.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I have the 2, and they're so different in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's so true.
So it creates an opportunity for you to really exercise that vulnerability superpower, because of the fact that they are different, and you are going to be experimenting and creating curiosity, which we are going to get into more in our in the second part of our discussion. But for now, I really would love it if you would share with everyone where they can find you, and then we're going to take a quick break. So
yeah, sure. So the best way to reach me is on my website, which is www.aurorawellness.com. That's ARORA wellness.com. Or you can connect with me on Instagram at P-Arora, P-A-R-O-R-A 330.
beautiful, beautiful. So we have been talking, Payal and I, about embracing the power of self in small confidence steps. So when we come back, we're going to continue on that discussion. So stay with us and we'll be right back.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The SuperPower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the SuperPower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and I'm Laura Greco, your host, and we are speaking with Payal Arora on the topic of embracing the power of self in small confidence steps. So as we continue this discussion, Payal, we're going to expand on the idea of a mom taking care of herself first. So I speak to this in the question of autonomy and how important is that to a mom when she's parenting to her children, and how important is that to the children? So you and the children. Yeah.
So 100% important.
There you go.
So I think, yes, autonomy. And when I think of autonomy, I think of the ability to sort of make your own decisions based on, your values and your interests, and then act on those decisions. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're a mother, it's often hard in the beginning too, to physically separate yourself from your child. Yeah. Because you're so connected, because, often mamas are nursing, or they're just constantly with the baby. And so physically it's difficult to sort of separate yourself as a human. And, but as a mother, I know that I have to also take care of my own needs, my own feelings, my own, I have to do what lights my soul on fire. And that to me is really important, because just being able to follow those passions and interests and then modeling that for my children, to know that they can also follow those passions and interests, and that they can be independent thinkers and doers. That to me is a super important role as a mother, I think. And so I want them to be able to make their own decisions based on what's right and wrong, and to follow their own hearts and their own intuition in life, And so that's why I decided, after having 2 kids, to start my own business, because I have full autonomy over my work. I decide who I work with, when that happens, how, and I make it work for me, and I make it work for my family, because along with being an entrepreneur, I know I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend. And each of these roles is extremely important to me. But I want my children to see that you can be each of these and play each of these roles and still live a life doing the things that align with your passion and your interest. Because this work is super important to me, and I truly believe in what I'm doing in helping and coaching other mamas. And it does light my soul on fire. And that's what I want my children to see.
Yes. Yes. And so obviously you take the view that your children are here for their own purpose, not to be mini you or mini your husband. They're their own being with their own purpose. And when you're demonstrating that, you recognize that for yourself. that they can also follow that same example. I also liked what you shared, which I think expands on this, and you can comment more if you want to, but that when you're lit up, you're more available to hear, see, and really value your children for their individuality.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think when I'm lit up, it's that whole saying that you can only pour from a full cup. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And so when I do the work that I love to do, and when I take time to exercise and, take care of myself and fill my cup, that's when I can appreciate my children in their fullness, because I'm not in a state of depletion myself.
Exactly.
And I think that's what you're saying is when you're full and when you're lit up from the inside and you're following your dreams and passions and being your autonomous self, that's when it's easier to see your children in their glory in that sense.
And in that aspect, so you have let's tie this together a little bit. Your superpower is that vulnerability, or that ability to be open and to really receive others as they are and where they are, as well as yourself and your children. And your background from moving around have certainly helped you to hone that skill. How does that, how has that led you to this work, do you think? Was there a defining moment that you said, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I had just had my second, and I was in a state of I had talked a little bit earlier about that loneliness feeling and feeling that I was failing at what I was doing. And I started connecting with other moms in my community and realizing I wasn't failing. But it was that conversation that I had over and over with new mothers that was the same. They all kind of felt, alone and failing. And that's when I had that realization that we just need a way to connect and sort of build our self-confidence to realize that we're okay as we are, and we're doing great. And it is hard, And so it was in those conversations that I had again and again with new mothers that were so similar to my experience that I realized that I wanted to do something about it. And that's what led me to this coaching work. And now it is that vulnerability and that openness that allows for those connections, for me to make those connections with other mothers. Yes. Because, so much of the conversation with moms out there is, you're tough, you can handle it, you can do it. But at the same time, and that's true, mothers are extremely tough. I know that. Yeah. But I think, there also needs to be a conversation that says, look, I get you. I hear you. I feel you. I've been there. I'm in that boat with you, and it's hard, and it's okay. It's okay that it's hard, and we're in it together almost,
Yes. Yes.
So it's,
yeah. Go ahead. I was just going to speak to that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it's shifting the conversation a little bit for mothers to be okay with the fact that it is hard. It can be hard, although, we love our children so much. There are moments that it's difficult, and it's okay to take care of yourself first if that's what needs to happen in that moment, so that you can pour from your full cup. And it's just shifting that conversation a little bit from just being tough to being open and supportive.
Yes. And supportive of self first, because you cannot give what you do not have, as you've already mentioned. And I know that even me as a mom, I was always looking and discovering and very open to learning new ways of doing things. I knew where I came from was not a pattern I wanted to perpetuate. And there is a piece of every mom that little bit of, I don't know, is it pride, or is it a cover up for our maybe guilt or lack of confidence, that we want to appear strong and powerful, and yet that willingness to admit it sometimes feels overwhelming. Like, if I admit that, the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Sometimes it's scary. It's scary
Yeah.
to admit that it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because, but then also that's where the support needs to come in, right?
Exactly.
That's where your other mom friends or your network or whoever you rely on, that's where it's so critical to kind of have your people that you can rely on. And whether that's a health coach, right? Someone
Right.
who's on your side that's helping you take those steps to kind of rebuild that self-confidence, or whether that's your own mother, or whether that's your sister or your best friend. It's just knowing that there's other people going in it with you and that you're not alone.
Yes. And I would like to, you just spurred a point that I think is very important here. When we are looking for a support system, be it a coach, a friend, a relative, whatever that is, it is also, and maybe you can give recommendations from your viewpoint, but I see it as also vital to understand the relationship that we have with those individuals and whether they're supporting us in being, solution oriented, or whether they're supporting us in the like, oh, it's hard, and yeah, it's hard, and like never solving the problem, but always finding that almost victim kind of perpetuation. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. Like, no one relationship's going to solve everything for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be a moment in your life when you need your friend to just kind of commiserate with and be like, okay, this is really hard, and I know you're doing it too, and it's hard, right?
Right.
Yeah, sometimes we need that, and we need that sort of sympathy and commiserating
Validation.
together.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's going to be a moment when you need that lifting up and the proactive steps that you can take to kind of move on and get, sort of whatever it is you need. But you're going to need, maybe it's a coach, right? That's where a health coach can really come in, I think, is that I help my mamas kind of take steps forward. So we set goals and then we work towards them. So it's, yes, I commiserate with you because I get it. But at the same time, we're going to move forward and get better and move on and do what we want to do, right? To kind of light your soul on fire. Right. And so yes, I totally agree with you. I think different relationships play those different roles, and probably not one person in your life is going to be able to solve all of it for you. And I think you're right. It's in recognizing for yourself who that is that plays each of those roles for you in your life.
Right. And where you want to be going, whether it brings you closer to where you want to be in life. That's so important. And so in expanding on the work that you're doing and the work that actually is being done by other moms or professionals in the realm of supporting the mom, like, what do you see as the great big picture, the picture that's bigger than you? Like, what do you see this work leading to?
Yeah. So I think the bigger vision that I see is to live in a society where moms feel that sense of connectedness, and they don't feel alone.
Yeah.
Because I hope in the work that I do with coaching, it's to incorporate healthier habits into their routines, so that they're able to build their own self-confidence as autonomous, independent mothers, but at the same time, not feeling alone in it. So that's, I don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't do it. Exactly. I think as a mom, you were given a gift and somebody believes in you, or, some power believes in you to be able to do it. And I want you to believe in yourself that you can do it.
Yes. And it's amazing because if you have taken on the role of a mom, however which way, whether you're a mom because you birthed a child or you adopted a child or you foster children, like whatever it is that you're doing that puts you in that role of a mom, you obviously, I believe, and this was asked of me one time, why did I become a mom? Like, I believe we have a purpose in becoming a parent to a child. And it's interesting, isn't it, to discover what that is and then live into that for not just for ourselves, but also to allow our child to grow into who they are and what their purpose is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're working through things, and our children are like little mirrors. So
right. That's true.
Oh my goodness. And all of it's okay to feel and to see, and then it's what we do with it, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's what we do with it. So when we talk about this topic of embracing the power of self in small confident steps, would you like to speak a little bit more to that? Like, do you have a tip? Do you have some information we haven't covered yet that you feel the listeners would really, you'd like to impart that gift to them?
Yeah, I think that, the one thing that I would want the listeners to remember is really just, even when it seems really hard, realize that things will change because everything is temporary, and also realize that you're doing okay. In fact, you're probably doing more than okay. You're probably doing your very best. And that's all anyone could ever ask of you. And that's all you could ever ask of yourself. And that is good enough. It's good enough for you. It's good enough for the people you love and the people who love you. And so that's all I want them to remember.
Okay. And I'd like to, somebody provided an example to me on that very point that I'd like to share.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened to be, it's so funny how things come about, but I happen to be reading the Louise Hay book. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Yes, I haven't read her, but I've heard about her book.
Yeah. So, she has several books, but at one point she was explaining her life experience about beginning to speak in front of people. And, she went up there and she's not done it before, and she did it. And she decided that her attitude would be, I did great today. And I will do even better next time. Like, she decided that what she did was okay for the moment because that was her best then. And that it will likely be different the next time. And that's great too, And I feel like that sort of speaks to what you're saying. Like, yeah, I did great today. And I'm going to do even better next time. Like, it's always a journey.
It is. Yeah. We're always growing and we're always changing ourselves. So be okay with doing your best in the moment. And when you know better, you do better. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Payal. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time. Is there anything else that you want to share before we close out?
No, I feel so, again, grateful for having this time to speak with you, Laura. And just, I feel like we covered a lot. So thank you.
Yeah. And it's the little steps, isn't it?
Yes. It's all about taking little steps. In my mind, it's little steps add up to big change over time.
Yeah.
And little steps are sustainable. It's when you try to make a huge change all at once that things start falling apart. But if you can take little tiny steps towards whatever your goals are over time and just keep taking those steps over and over, that's when big change happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you share with us just quickly how you went through that process of a little step that turned into another step?
Yeah, I started meditating.
Okay.
And I love it. And, I started with 3-minute micro meditations because I was like, I can't do this. I can't sit in one place for that long and just breathe. But I started, and it was a little step. And then I started doing it every day. And then it became easier to increase the time, and it became easier to just do it. And it's with building any habit, right? It's just about taking those first little steps and then doing it over and over. And it's been a blessing in my life because it's how I sort of am able to breathe and control my emotions sometimes when I'm in the middle of those tantrums with my 2-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And it can be overwhelming to be in those experiences, right?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. But if you have tools like meditation or tools like breathing, you kind of can get through that overwhelm.
And I know that you also speak to the idea of nutrition and food as being helpful in managing those stressful times.
Yes, 100%. I think we often rely on food in a lot of situations, and that's not necessarily bad. Like, food brings people together, and we love eating with other friends and people, and that's great. But it's when food becomes harmful and we're not making the best decisions for our body, or we're not using it as a support, that's when it can have a negative effect. So I do like to work with mamas to start adding healthier options into their daily meals as a way of supporting their bodies and nourishing their bodies, and also their minds, because I do believe what you eat impacts your thoughts. So I do think, food is one tool that you can use to be the best person that you can be.
It's beautiful. So thank you so much, Payal, for being here and for sharing your gems of wisdom that you have gained in your short period of time having children. How old are your children again?
5 and 2.5.
Okay. Yeah. So you got a little, any more coming on, or?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. And in this world of, it seems to be so evolving. I love that you as a mom are also stepping up and supporting other moms. That connection is so vital. And the more we're able to experience it. Oh, and I wanted to share this one little point, because I think that you'll really relate to this. I read this in a book somewhere. I think Elizabeth Gilbert actually wrote about it, but where a writer actually journeyed through women communities in the world and discovered that women communing together was the primary way that they lived. The men went off and did their things, and their horse tended to be solo, but women tended to function in community. They did their laundry together. They did their sewing together. They watched after the kids together. That communal thing is it was just a different way that women experience life from the standpoint of men, and their experience in life. Nothing judgment, but just how it goes. So I think it really speaks to that, what you say about community and women having community is so vital.
Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you very much. So please tell everybody where they can reach you again.
Oh, sure. Yeah. My website is www.aurorawellness.com, ARORA wellness.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram at PARORA330, P-Aurora 330.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you so much for helping us to journey through this topic of embracing the power of self in small, confident steps. Mamas, thank you.
Laura.
Oh, thank you, honey. And thank you so much, all you mamas out there, for joining us. I'd like to admonish you just to love yourselves for the treasures that you are. Within you are all you need. So go out and discover and own your superpowers. Just go out and be you. We love you. Till next time.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.